Welcome everybody back to the Friar Talk podcast and YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about Marcus Stroman, but before we get into it, I'm going to quickly go over something that we said last episode that was corrected to us. So we mentioned that when we were talking about Jeff Bannister being a candidate, we mentioned that he lost the locker room when he was part of the Texas Rangers and was managing there. His daughter, Alexandra Bannister, reached out to us, basically said that's a false narrative that was kind of brought up there. Obviously, we're not super filled in on what's going on in the Rangers organization, although there are many, many connections to the Padres from it. But just wanted to set everyone straight on that she reached out to us and said, that's not the case. With that said, let's talk about Marcus Stroman. It was rumored that he's apparently being rumored to the Padres. So, Isaac, what are your thoughts on Marcus Stroman becoming a Padre?
I think it'd be great. I mean, the one thing, of course, that I would prefer along with getting Marcus Stroman is being able to develop some of the guys down in the minors, such as, Mackenzie Gore being the biggest one. He needs to be able to come up and pitch some effective innings for the Padres next year. But in terms of the offseason, we knew that AJ Preller, he's on the hot seat right now. Like, I think we can all agree on that. And if he's not able to make a good move at the deadline that actually benefits his team throughout a whole 162-game season, he's going to be gone. We saw Blake Snell was pretty inconsistent at first. Yu Darvish was terrible down the line. Joe Musgrove was as consistent as can be. So he made some good acquisitions. It's just they didn't pan out the way we thought they would, except for Joe. And Blake towards the end was fantastic also. So he needs to be, if he's going to go after Marcus Stroman, I think it'd be a great move. I think he's a good clubhouse guy. He's a really, really, really fun pitcher to watch. I really enjoy having Marcus Stroman. I don't know what his numbers were this year. I know earlier he was doing really well. I don't know his ERA or anything like that, but we know what Marcus Stroman brings to the table, and if he's able to be like a 3 or a 4 for us next year, because I think Musgrove will be the 1. I think Snell will probably be the 2. Stroman could probably compete for that also. I think we'd be in a great position, and it'd still give Mackenzie Gore time to make a in-season debut down the line, and he wouldn't have to rush himself to get up to the majors.
So since you mentioned numbers, he pitched in 33 games, went 10-13, which wins and losses aren't really important to a pitcher. Had a 3.02 ERA, 179 innings pitched, 158 strikeouts, and a 1.15 WHIP, which he had a career year compared to his career stats. He had a really good year. The Padres have been linked to Marcus Stroman for a while now, considering I think it was like 2-3 years ago. He was like every offseason. They're like, well, the Padres trade for Marcus Stroman, the ace. Well, they trade for Noah Syndergaard, another ace. Like they were just linked to almost every ace imaginable. So, looking at it now, you know what? He may be worth the trade. He may be worth the money. But I think it's kind of you run into the same scenario you did last offseason. Are you really going to try and fix all your problems with big name trades? That's like my only thing with it, or big name signings, because we've seen how that kind of works out for us. I think we just need to, trust the guys that we have. We have a lot of guys coming back from injury. We have Clev, we'll have Paddock, we'll have Snell, with Darvish, and then you'll still have you still have Musgrove, you'll have Mortejon coming back, and then you have all the guys in the minor leagues. Those are 6, starting caliber pitchers, and then you throw Stroman in it, and it's kind of like someone is going to get knocked down. Who's it going to be? Are you going to have time to develop these guys? Because we've seen the Padres kind of lack of confidence in 6-man rotation, even though they have all the pieces to do it. They really like the 5-man, so that means someone gets delegated to the bullpen. Who's it going to be? Someone's not going to be happy. Someone's going to be misused. Are they going to trade another starting pitcher away? There's a lot of questions to be asked if you add Marcus Stroman into the situation. That being said, I would love to have Marcus Stroman on the team, but I don't think it's a necessity or something that should be actively sought out for.
All right. Real quick, Isaac, does Chase sound kind of like a robot to you, or is that just me? Okay, Chase, you kind of sound like a robot. But with that said, Marcus Stroman, I like the idea. I think a lot of it would depend on if Chris Paddock is injured going into next year. He's got, was it the PRP shot or whatever it is? Not a good sign. Hasn't been a good sign in the past. Pretty much most of the guys that happens to end up ultimately getting Tommy John. So we will see what ends up happening with that. But Isaac, you brought up, didn't remember his ERA. I don't think it really matters that much because like we do know who Marcus Stroman is at this point. But he did have a 3.02 in 33 games started. Like that's very, very good numbers. If you're potentially adding this guy, and I think he would be the 3. I think he would be the 3, and then I think Darvish would be the 4, which makes you look really deep after that. And I still don't know who it would also depend, if Paddock's back. I guess Clev would be the next guy, but you might even work Clev in slowly. So you might bring up like Adrian Martinez and Clev in that spot. So we will see. Bit older. I feel like 3-4 year deal would be likely. Maybe like 15 million. I don't know. What do you guys think?
So this year from the Mets, he got paid 18.9 mil.
So probably even more, right?
Even more, yeah. Considering his numbers this year, how good he was for them, he'd probably be paid 20 to 22. I would probably say. I don't think it'd be that much more. But I mean, if he pitches the way he did this year, it'd be all worth the money.
Yeah, definitely.
Because that's kind of what we're missing right now. I mean, we had Musgrove, who was top. Like, was he? Did he end up finishing top 10 in ERA?
I think so. If not, I mean, he pitched a ton of innings.
Yeah. So I mean, if he finished top 10 in ERA, Marcus Stroman had to have been right around there somewhere. And like I said, good clubhouse guy. He's fun to watch. I'd love watching Marcus Stroman. I think he's a great pitcher. He's got good stuff. And I don't know how often he gets injured or anything. Obviously, that's on my mind considering what the Padres' injury woes were this year in terms of pitching. How often a lot of these guys went on the IL, whether it was 10 days or all the days. But I'd like him, Chase. You're right, not a necessity, but absolutely something that Preller has to consider because his ass might be gone.
So Chase, are you a big fan of it?
I like Marcus Stroman a lot. It's just one of those things is you're going to have to get rid of a pitcher then. You're going to have to get rid of someone who's making a ton of money, probably Hosmer. Then you just kind of replace that and you kind of, I wouldn't say hinder yourselves, but you kind of have to get rid of a starting pitcher. And then you start to delay, a lot of your minor league pitchers again. Like Gore already lost 2020. He was kind of lost this year with his whole mechanics and velocity issues. And, I think this move will wait to see how Gore does in, I guess, the Arizona Fall League. Because if he does really well there, then I don't think it's a necessity. And I think, okay, he's building himself back up to be the starter next year. But if not, you still have Clef coming back and you have the rest of the guys coming back. And him being 30, pitchers start to get more injured and start to lose their stuff, after 30, 31. We've seen a lot of times. Darvish was really injured this year. Kershaw, after that side of 30, dealt with a lot of back problems. Darvish is dealing with a lot of back problems. So, it's just kind of one of those things. And kind of looking back, it looked like in 2018 he was injured because he only pitched 19 games. And then after that, he has practically pitched every single time he's came up except 2015, where he only pitched 4 games. And then looking outside of this year, last year he had a really good year, but in 2018 he had a 5.5 ERA. You can look at it as an outlier in 2016 and a 4.37. You just don't know exactly. He is proved to be an ace caliber pitcher, but I don't think you make the move. I mean, it's like a luxury thing. Like if a team didn't need him but could pay him, it's kind of that. And I think that's kind of what the Padres might look at it as. Just because you have the guys in the minor leagues, you have all the guys coming off the IL next year who could have made their own rotation full bullpen. So it's one of those things. It's like, yeah, he would be nice to have. He's a clubhouse guy. He's a good pitcher. He's fun to watch. But I'd rather see that money go to fixing another hole that the Padres have. Maybe upgrading first base, upgrading a left field bat, something else rather than just a spot in the rotation.
Yeah, I definitely think, I feel like it's the same way because thinking about like where this money is going to come from, it's going to probably mean that Will Myers is gone, or Eric Hosmer, or both, and you're gonna have to replace a left fielder already. That adds right field. And then that also adds first base. Well, potentially, because first base might not really, because you could put Cronenworth there. But you still need to pick up a position player. So you also have like that hole there. That's gonna be the big question. Maybe they would move Darvish. I don't know. I don't really think that's something that it's in the plans right now, but you never know. I'm just trying to think of guys that, make a lot of money. But it's interesting. So maybe they go and do it. I also feel like it's kind of a luxury move. And I think that there's other things on top of like my wish list, I guess, this offseason, than going and getting Marcus Stroman. I think a big part of that too is getting Clev back as well. But I think that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. And tomorrow we're going to be going back to that series that we're going to be doing throughout the offseason, like not counting rumors and information that comes out, but the Fixing the Padres series. So we're going to do an episode on that tomorrow. But thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you then.